We are on a mission to save and revitalize independent pharmacy. On the Catalyst podcast, we dive into current events that are shaping how pharmacists approach their patients and their businesses. Fuel your passion for pharmacy, one conversation at a time.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Hello, welcome to the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast. My name is Mark Bivins. I'm the Vice President of Business Development here at Pioneer RX, and I'm here with my co-host today, Josh.
I'm Josh Howland, Vice President of Clinical Strategy.
And we're here today with Rannon Ching from Tarrytown Pharmacy in Austin, Texas.
Did you intentionally make your wall look really badass behind you?
Yeah, no kidding.
No. This is all my wife. She's way cooler than I am.
Right, she's way cooler than me. I love that. Yeah, no doubt. I was just like, I already feel inferior just looking
You're
at
like,
No, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rannon. I have 6 degrees.
No, yeah, that's all my wife. She's a physician and she's board certified and got her master's in epidemiology too. And all of her diplomas were like rolled up. She had never taken them out. And I was like, hey, we've got to hang them up on the wall.
Yeah, let's do this. No doubt. Yeah.
Good to see you guys. You guys are all festive. Yeah. Earlier, I had to grab some of my decorations here.
Right. Oh, that's true. We have the lights on the microphone.
Just randomly throughout the podcast, bring the Nutcracker up.
Right. Yeah, that's true. When you want me and Josh to shut up and you want to chime in, you can be like, yeah, Nutcracker.
No, it can be like this. It can be the talking stick. Whenever we're talking.
Right. Yeah. All right. So we have Rannon Ching here, Tarrytown Pharmacy in Austin, outside of Austin, Texas, or is it technically
Tarrytown is straight up in the middle of Austin.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
You don't want to confuse.
You gotta come down. Gotta come check it out.
I've been there only probably a handful of times, just in Austin in general, to be honest.
You went there when they moved into the new location.
That's true. I was there with Shivam and the specialty.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, cool.
But okay, so I know you guys are doing just one in general, a lot of cool things around like COVID testing. And all the MedSync stuff you're doing, you're also I'm going to say the House Speaker is what I'm going to call it. I might be getting it wrong for Texas Pharmacy Association as well. And yes. Rannon's really involved. He's I'm going to call him Community Pharmacy, basically operations director over there at Tarrytown Pharmacy with the Newberry family as well. So before we get into all of the business stuff, you're from Hawaii, right? You're born in Honolulu.
I am.
Right? Okay. So how do you get from Honolulu, Hawaii, all the way to Austin, Texas? Really, I bet doing more COVID testing than any pharmacy in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy ride getting to Austin. I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and grew up there. My dad was born there. My mom lived there for most of her life. And my dad actually worked at Pearl Harbor when he was, before he retired. And so, just grew up on the island. My uncle actually owns an independent pharmacy still on the island. And so I grew up visiting his pharmacy and checking that out. So I knew about pharmacists and pharmacies, especially independent, all growing up. And what I really liked about independent pharmacy specifically was that he's in a really poor part of Hawaii, or like a low socioeconomic status area, very underserved. And man, he just helped his patients however he could. So if people couldn't pay for meds, he bartered with them. He traded pigs and chickens and eggs and, agricultural. And so I just saw him being able to help the community where a chain wouldn't step foot anywhere near where he is located.
Yeah, that's wild.
The ROI is not there for them. No doubt.
I don't see shareholders would like chickens and pigs.
That's probably true. Wow, that's so cool.
It's also very much against what you think of when you think of Hawaii, right? You don't think of...
That's true.
It's just
people forget
nations.
about that part of the population there. You really do, because when I've been there, I've only been there twice, I think.
First world problems.
I know, but you don't. You don't go there. You don't know that part. You really don't. You forget that that's even part of any other state in the country. They have those same issues.
Yeah, maybe even more so. The isolation is huge.
So what brought you to the States? So
this is a crazy story, actually. So my mom went to UT for her master's, and so she knew about Austin. And when we were looking, so I love Hawaii, it's great, but the school system's not the best. And so basically you have Obama that went to Punahou, which is basically college tuition for kindergarten through high school. Okay. And so that's not really a great option. And so we were really looking for good schools for my brother. I have an older brother and myself. And we're from Hawaii, so we hate being cold. So we ruled out the top,
top like 80% of the U.S. Right. Okay.
Yep. Didn't want to shovel snow. Didn't want to have to deal with sleet or ice. And then it kind of left California, Texas, and my parents are very data driven, and so they looked for the places that were the least likely to have a natural disaster, no flooding, no fires, no tornadoes, no earthquakes, and growth. And in 1999, my parents said, hey, Austin's the place. It's got a awesome university. Yeah, Josh, welcome, right?
The best university in the country.
Man, y'all are going to bro out so much.
Yeah, I know. we can double team you now. Yeah, I got TU2 here.
Right.
It was just a great opportunity. So we moved to the Lake Travis area, which is about 30 minutes west of Austin.
Right.
And at the time, there was cow fields and just pastures and the old trade mineral store, and there was nothing out here. And now all of that's changed, and it's so massive. And so it's a crazy turn of events. But yeah, I'm super grateful and super blessed to have lived in Austin for as long as I have. And I was able to go to UT for undergrad and then pharmacy school. And it's been amazing. I love being in Austin.
So one of the few, I feel like I don't get to hear, I mean, obviously with as prolific as that College of Pharmacy is, I don't get to see too many super success stories about getting to stay in Austin. A lot of them want to stay there, and you were able to swing that. So what took you in from, kind of give us a little bit of the steps from, okay, I graduated out of the College of Pharmacy. Did you land right into Tarrytown, or did you do something in between?
Yeah, so that's kind of crazy too. So I started working at Tarrytown when I was actually 18. So at the time, cool. I had worked a summer at the Target Pharmacy over in Lake Travis, and I really liked the experience, but they're going to stick me as a cashier, and I was like, I need pharmacy experience. And so actually I think it was like the Christmas break after my freshman year, I called every pharmacy in a 20-mile radius, independent chain, and just said, hey, I'm a tech and training. I would love to get experience. And the only people that called me back were Mark Newberry and one chain that, after they replied, they didn't get back to me. It was great. I sat down in the old Tarrytown location and talked to Mark, and it reminded me of my uncle's pharmacy, not in this that, our patient populations are very different, but just that sense of community and the fact that independent pharmacies are the backbone of a community. And I just loved it. And we're since 2019, all through undergrad, all through pharmacy school. And actually, as a, P4 or P3, I go up to Mark and say, all right, Mark, about to graduate pharmacy school. What do you got for me? And he was like, sorry, Rannon, I don't have a position for you. And so I was like, all right, nice, plan B. Plan B. It was great. Yeah, it was great though. On rotation, I actually asked to be put in the busiest chain pharmacy that they had, which sounds ridiculous now, but I only known independent. I'd only really worked at Tarrytown, only seen my uncle's pharmacy, and I was like, these big chains are doing something right. So I think it's kind of a dangerous mindset to think that just because we're an independent pharmacy, we provide better customer experiences. And so I went to the busiest chain pharmacy in Austin, and what was cool is that my preceptor saw the way that I treated patients and took care of them, and that's so foreign to chains that she hired me my second rotation. So I was able to get a job, in Austin, working for now one of my really close friends and mentors. And that was a really cool opportunity right out of school. And then about a year and a half later, Mark position opened at Tarrytown. So he asked me back, and
nice.
Yeah, I thought about it for a while, and then this is amazing. It's a great opportunity. And so came back in, I think, 2015 at Tarrytown. And then 2016 is when our long-term care pharmacy was really kind of exploding. And then he asked me to take over as PIC.
Expo Care, right? I think is the pharmacy.
Expo Care. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, Mark's done an amazing job, and, our team over there is amazing. And, we're just doing the most over there. So it's really cool. Right. So, it's been awesome.
So, it's wild. When I was going to pharmacy school, I was about a semester away from graduating as a chemical engineer at UT. And I decided that I didn't want to do that with my life. So I had to give up my full scholarship and tell my parents that I was going to do this.
Oh man.
So I had to have a backup plan, right?
Beat you up.
And at that time you had to have a pharmacist recommendation to get into pharmacy school. And so I had this panic moment of I had to call all the pharmacies in Austin to see if somebody would let me work there at all.
Right.
And just to get a pharmacist to say, hey, this guy's okay, reasonably competent and can go to pharmacy school.
He's good. Yeah.
And so I called a bunch of pharmacies, and actually Tarrytown was the one that called me back.
Oh, really?
And so
I didn't know that, Josh.
I didn't know that either, man.
Yeah.
I've been with him 5 years, Rannon.
So I actually, I worked at the old location with Mark's dad for, I guess, 7 or 8 weeks prior to pharmacy school. And Tarrytown wrote my recommendation to get into pharmacy school.
I did full circle, man. All right.
I had no idea, man. That's
so
cool.
both of us owe a little bit to the Newberry family, huh?
No.
Oh, yeah, we owe a lot. Yeah, I think a lot of people owe a lot to the Newberries. Like, it always blows my mind. Like, we'll reach out to people for flu shot clinics or even just COVID testing. We've done a lot of business COVID testings, and everybody's always like, hey, tell Mark I said hey. And I'm like, how does Mark know everybody in Austin? Like, but without fail, like everyone's like, oh, Newberry, tell him I said hey. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Everyone
there's just
knows
some
him.
people that just have it. And
Mark's
got it. So.
Yeah, everyone knows him. All right, you kind of alluded to just now, and I know people probably get tired of us talking about kind of COVID or pandemic impact and stuff like that, but you guys are doing something that I think is off the charts good. Like to the point, sure, other people have been able to test, and that's really cool. But you guys have figured out how to do it at a wholesale level or just large scale with throughput. What was a little bit of your mindset of even prepping for being able to do something like that?
Man, and it's kind of like we chatted like briefly about it yesterday, but a lot of it was at first I said just being in the place at the right time, but Josh was kind enough to say no, the preparation. So a lot of it came that I had a real interest in strep and flu testing, and so we got our CLIA-Wave license probably like 3 years ago or
so you're on the ball already there.
Yeah, 2016, because I was like, man, we need to test for strep and flu. That'd be really cool. And so we got our CLIA-Wave license. We were doing we have a pharmacy residency for ownership and management too. And our very first resident, that was his business plan, was how do we make strep and flu testing profitable? And we started from there. And cool. We do a bunch of strep, bunch of flu tests. And so we already had a very good introduction and also real application of point of care testing in a pharmacy setting. And so when the time came, it was just so crazy that the fact that we had the Quidel and had the BD machines already was a huge component because, right now, I don't think if I put an order for a Quidel back in March, I still probably wouldn't have it.
That's probably true.
Yeah. And so just being positioned, and we had already done it. We started just how we had done it before. We incorporated it kind of into workflow a little bit, but it was different because COVID, right? Because a big thing, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this too, guys, was how to keep your employees safe, right? So how do I present this to our staff to say, hey, we need to do COVID testing, and here's how we can do it in a safe, effective way. And we have a bunch of bright, smart pharmacists at Tarrytown, and we have a pharmacist that's our kind of director of business development, and he was a big proponent of kind of pushing and saying we can do this and we can make it safe. And so it was really interesting. But what do y'all think about just the whole optics of, because that's kind of a scary thought, right? It's in the middle of, hey, people are getting sick, but let's invite people in so we can test them.
No kidding. Yeah, no. Josh is kind of our COVID czar.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
Right, he really is.
I don't want to be called the COVID king. That would be horrible.
Right. Yeah.
But kind of looking at just general safety measures of how, and we actually work in a 22 floor building. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we were worried about right off the top was the elevators.
Right.
Yep.
And luckily, most of the building has, we're probably at 30% capacity right now.
Right. Yeah.
But just making sure people are standing in the corners of the elevators wearing masks. We had to work with our building to get an infrared camera installed downstairs so we can scan people and flag out of range temperatures. We
kind of and to give Josh credit and Jeff and everybody else too. They forced it on the building, to be fair. No, but we kind of building whoever's
we kind of did it and then asked permission later,
right.
And then when
perfect.
that's, but we were protecting people that worked here. You guys were
Right.
actively inviting potentially sick people into
Right.
your pharmacies. It's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, and I think one thing that really lent itself to us is that we had the perfect space for it. Actually, the specialty building that y'all saw.
Oh,
so we have,
okay.
for those people that don't know where our pharmacy, we have our main pharmacy that actually used to be an old Blockbuster. We moved in 2010, and it's hilarious. The Blockbuster closed down, and we moved in.
I didn't know it was
It still has all the big windows. It doesn't feel like a
It does
Blockbuster.
got the big windows though. Yeah, I could see
It's
it
got the
now.
big
Now that you
windows.
say about it. Yeah, now that you talk about it.
Yeah, but right behind it, we had this little, I don't even know, maybe 1,000 square feet, so like a really kind of like interesting unit right behind the pharmacy. And number one, we're like, we have to keep people safe. I don't want people walking through the pharmacy, because at the time we had closed our pharmacy for walk-in traffic for a month, from April to May.
Okay.
And so, we definitely didn't want, people getting tested to like interact with the patients that were coming in, right? And so being able to do what I call like a curbside model, we can pull up in your car and we go to your car to test, was way easier to implement because we had that space that was behind our building. Parking spaces were right in front of the door, and we could truly isolate our testing staff from our other business. And so a lot of it was just logistics. And so if you're a doctor office that is on the 4th floor of an office building, like I don't think you can, it's hard, it's going to be really difficult. And so a part of it was having just the ability to do that. And what's cool is a lot of pharmacies have that ability of either being a standalone building or in a strip mall. And so that's something that was really important to us too. But yeah, it was definitely a weird thought where it was like March, April, May, we were keeping people out. And then July, we were actively inviting people
bringing them in. Yeah, no doubt.
So one thing I think is really important, and like, it shocked me yesterday when you told me how many COVID tests you guys had done.
Yeah.
So just kind of walk us through from like test 1 to test multiple thousand. Like, you went from doing it behind your building to multiple remote sites of testing. It's really impressive. I've not heard anybody else at all doing that.
That was just a progression. I think a lot of it is just encouragement from Mark and just the idea that we can meet a need. And so a lot of it has to do with like capacity. And so if you have, our appointments, we started off with just a little hour, or not an hour, but like a certain hour time frame and a certain number of appointments within that time. And that's another thing too. We knew it had to be appointment based because I was thinking about flu shots. Think about how many people would line up in the same place to do that. It's just not possible. And so for us, the appointment model was huge. And so having a finite amount of appointments, once you max that out, your options are turn people away or keep expanding. And so I think that was really encouraging to have Mark really supportive of that. And just kind of when you see the opportunity, you just put, a lot of people say, or kind of put their best people on the busiest times, but we like to put our best people on all of our energy on the opportunities.
The biggest
that was just a huge, those were huge opportunities. Like if we're maxing out our 3 hours of testing, why not offer 4? Well, what happens if we went from 4 to 8? What happens if we went from 1 location to 2? What if we went from 2 to 3? And so it was just something that kind of grew, and like our team has been awesome. And so we started using our current pharmacy staff to do it, just like we had done strep and flu. And then when it got big enough, we knew we had to get dedicated testing staff. So a lot of hiring, and it was just a good thing, especially in the time where people were losing their jobs, to be able to create jobs. And it was really, really neat. And we're still doing that now. So
yeah, I think that's a good to great quote, by the way. I think is what that
it is. Oh yeah, have you read that book too?
I love that
one
book.
of my favorite books.
Mark runs down the hall telling us about that book all the time.
All the time. Sounds like me and
having all of us read it, he still tells us about it all the time.
I know, it's so good.
Hedgehog concept, man. I tell my staff all the time, like, what's the one thing that we can be the best at? Like, I don't know. I'm not, online retailer. I can't, like FedEx truck stuff, but what can we do? We can turn and that's why I think every independent. And like, I'm curious to see, you guys have talked to so many independents, like, do people realize that like independence, I think one of great strengths is our ability to pivot and adjust and change really quickly. We don't have a boardroom. We don't have shareholders. We can just, if we want to do it, we do it. What do y'all like? Do you think people realize that, or?
I think some, at least the folks that have been on this show have, right? We've had Barry on, and he went about it a different way. He's done a ton of COVID testing too, and he had to go drum up just a lab that would partner with him, right? But he took the time and had a relationship already, because mental health and the mental health drugs that they do are such a big part of what they do. But you're right, he was quickly able to have some foresight, and you see that in a lot of our independent pharmacies, have some foresight and then be able to act on it, and not wait and not have to go get a budget and not have to go get approval for it.
Right.
You're 100% right.
I mean, even, when we were talking to you yesterday and you were like, I was expecting you to tell me that you've done, a couple hundred COVID tests.
Yeah.
And you were like, nah, I did like 500 yesterday. Like that level of scale, even though you know about it, the hardest part that we've seen that other independents struggle with is how do they let other people know about it? And then, some of the ones that we've been seeing that are successful, like you've gone out and multiple locations doing thousands of COVID tests, and you're, the city of Austin and the public health, they know about it now, right? They know if they need anything, Tarrytown's got it. And so, the ones that we've seen that have been successful have those connections with public health, or they're in with their community.
True. Yeah.
And that's one of the things I hope that if people are listening, if you don't know who's in your community and who's doing public health and who's in charge of, the economic development or the Chamber of Commerce, nobody knows what you can do, and it's a huge gap.
Yeah, no, Trip talked about that, and I was one of our first ones, I think, with and just talking about knowing everyone in your neighborhood, and if you don't know your public, or do you guys? I imagine you do now for sure. As much testing as you're doing, you probably have a relationship with someone at the public health department.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we even had one beforehand, and so we have interacted with a lot of, just in our daily interactions, or whether it be patients, with people who are involved with, like the Texas Public Health Department, and kind of working with them on some projects at UT. And I think it's really important, but also just listening to your environment, right? Like, I feel like we have all these little kind of like areas or neighborhoods or things, and the needs of one neighborhood is different from another. And so what we were hearing from a lot of our patients, and people just asking, like, do you guys do testing? Or, hey, tell me about your testing. And we just heard stories and stories and stories of, in July, hey, I went to, XYZ, we all know who it is, Fox Chain,
right?
Got a sample. It's been 7 days, called them. They said they lost it. Hey, come back and get another one. I went back in, they swabbed me again. 5 days went go by. They lost my sample again, and forget it. Like, if it's a free test and I have to wait 15 days, I don't want it, right?
So he came at that point, it doesn't matter anyway, right?
Yeah. I was like, dude, good job. You just quarantined. Like, you're done.
Right.
One of the other things that you talked about that, you claimed it was being in the right place at the right time, but you mentioned that you bought a super cold freezer recently. Like, just kind of, what was the thought process behind speculatively buying a freezer that probably 1% of pharmacies in the country have?
Like, I think that kind of goes back to preparation. And I'm so glad you guys read Good to Great. I love it. Yeah. Because I always try to talk to my students about it.
Oh, it's such a good book,
look at me like
man.
blank faces.
It's such a good book. If you can get past the fact that some of these companies aren't quite there anymore, but they were at the time, you just, there's so much good stuff in that book.
No, I think when I think about what we could be the best at the world at, I think it's, and I think maybe just for independence in general, I think it really is looking ahead and positioning yourself in positions for success. And so we talk about risk versus benefit. We talk about, cost versus opportunity. And for us, they were talking about, oh, well, Moderna is the front runner. And so, and I guess by the time this comes out, hopefully we'll have everything ready to go for phase 1.
Right.
But, everyone's, is that crazy? Yeah, this one candidate needs an ultra low freezer. They'll never work out. And then I was thinking, oh, well, then opportunity, right? Like, we're a small pharmacy. If Moderna or a refrigerated vaccine comes out, they're not going to give it to me. They're going to give it to big old hospital system, XYZ. But if that means now Pfizer's over there, like, licking their wounds, trying to get their vaccine out, maybe they'll send it to me, right? So it was kind of an opportunity to try to leverage ourselves, even as a small player, to be a big part. And so, if I was going to get left over, if I was going to get picked over as the little guy, well, then I'll go to the person that is going to be basically begging people to take their vaccine because no one wants to store it, and we'll do it.
I love that, being the small player but playing a big role.
Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna cut that one. We're gonna
Love
push
it.
that
Yeah.
one.
I'll have to trademark it real quick.
Right. Yeah. You have to trademark that. Yeah.
I mean, it was really weird too, because I remember, back in September, I called the ultra low freezer manufacturer, and I just talked to the sales guy, which was really weird too, because I called him and he was like, hello, like someone to talk to. And then now he's probably just like inundated. But I mean, we chatted for like 45 minutes, and I was like, hey man, who's buying these? Like, where are these freezers even at? Like, who needs a super cold freezer?
Right.
And he told me research labs holding specimens.
That's true.
Like, you'll find it in the basement of some random Ivy League college that, they store, I don't know what, who knows what down there. But he's like, yeah, like, and he told me straight up, he's like, I will not be able to provide enough to meet demand. He's like, it's just not possible.
Oh, wow.
He's like, we can't make them fast enough. We don't have supply chain.
Right.
We're not going to invest the inventory, because then as soon as a refrigerated candidate does come out, just like almost like the mask, exactly like the
That's
mask.
true. Yeah.
So it was very interesting. And so the fact that we were able to chat and talk, and I told him, I was like, I think we're going to pull the trigger. And he was, yeah, go for it, man. Like, order it now, because, if and when, like, people do want it, it'll be right now we're probably looking at like a 3 or 4 month lead time. By that time we will be in phase 2 and you won't need one. So it's really kind of came from like a place of not I wouldn't say weakness, but almost like being backed into a corner where it's like, I know that I passed up on the main refrigerated vaccine. So we've got to figure out other ways. And so I always tell people, we're going to hit obstacles, but some people will just give up and other ones will try to get around it. And we've always been good about trying to figure a way around it.
I love it.
That was one of the things that my boss told me early on. And, Jeff's a software developer. And he was like, the reason he loves software is because if you come up a hurdle in a hardware situation, you have to build new hardware. If you come up to a hurdle in a software, you just build a way around it. And you kind of took that whole idea of like, cool, here's a problem. I'm going to find a way to go around the problem. And now the coolest part about that is, you're going to get into situations where the next time this happens, you're already ready. And the people who you served this time because you found a way around it, now you're the obstacle, right? Somebody else is going to come and be like, all right, cool, Tarrytown's going to get this, and we're going to skip over all these other people because you're prepared and they've already shown a track record of it. It's just, it's a really cool, smart thing that happened.
Right. Yeah. It's just interesting. And it's not a footnote either. How maybe prepped by accident is a bad word probably, but how prepped you were based on what you were already doing, with strep and flu, and you guys immunize like crazy too already, don't you? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was one of the first things that, that's actually how kind of Mark kind of convinced, well, I didn't need too much convincing, but I told him like, hey, I want to do a huge vaccination program right now. At Tarrytown back in 2015, we did flu and pneumonia. The first thing I did, actually the day I started at Tarrytown, I met with my mentor at UT she's like the queen of immunizations. Okay. And I just said, Sharon, like, give me a 5-year immunization plan. And she went over every year, like, Rannon, first year you do this, by year 5 you're gonna be doing this. Oh, wow. And we went from flu and pneumonia to, we have rabies vaccines on our protocol. We've got yellow fever. We've got Japanese encephalitis. We've got Hep A, Hep B, like every kind of vaccine you could think of. And so that's just something I was really passionate about. And when the COVID vaccine came out, it just made sense because I was like, well, that's a vaccine. We need to administer it. And I'm always a big proponent of just pharmacists playing a big role in it. And like, I don't want to, like, we can pivot later, but like talking about the whole obstacle thing going around. I know Josh mentioned something yesterday. We almost had like a podcast yesterday. I love it.
We kind of did. Yeah.
I know. But I remember Josh saying that kind of back to basics and like at the end of the day, like what are the things that we have to do? And how can we get that out of the way quicker, do it better so we can focus on other things? Because we have to balance our books. We have to look at our inventory. We have to manage our workflow. That's a must. But the question is, how much of our time is that going to take up? And how much opportunity are we losing from there? And so I'm curious to see what you guys think about, like, I don't want to pivot too quick or anything, but I'm curious to see what's the next like hill or hurdle that we have to go around or what do y'all see, like if we freed up, let's say, like Pioneer comes out with this like sweet update, which y'all do a lot, and it just makes every pharmacy 50% more efficient and have 50% more time, now what's the opportunity? What's that next hurdle? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think first I need to get with you later, and we need to figure out a way that we can get that 5-year immunization plan and like 4,000 independent pharmacies.
Yes.
Maybe we can do a partnership with UT Austin and.
Oh, for sure.
Brandon's writing a book.
Find some reasons to go visit and hang out.
Come down to Austin. Come out. Yeah. Because I remember, you had a rotation student that did a lot of immunization stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Matt. And so, I mean, that'd be awesome. And I think the more pharmacies, I'm a big like profession person. And so the more people in the profession that can do it and like show our value, it's just gonna be better for us in the long run.
Right.
So,
it's one of those things where it's like independent pharmacies can't view each other as competitors anymore. They have to view each other as, if one independent pharmacy goes out of business, it's a shame. If all independent pharmacies go out of business, it's a tragedy. And so, helping all of the other independents kind of get to a point where you're not competing against other independents, you're competing against commodity chain models of pharmacy. And it's just not the way out for independents. You can't live that way. And that kind of in our pivot of talking about what we're thinking about, with Pioneer, we're really thinking about you have to be able to do those basic things better than anybody else, right? Your inventory has to be so good that you can't possibly mess it up. When you look at, you guys do a lot of cool stuff. I bet your inventory is really good, right? You can't do those other things if you don't spend a lot of time on inventory, buying well, selling well. So one of those things that we're really going to spend a lot of time focusing on is your inventory's got to be stellar, and you almost have to accidentally have a stellar inventory.
Right. Yeah. And also we've kind of, Rannon, and you've utilized this probably to the max as anybody has. And again, I'll preface this with, we're not done with it, is the patient engagement side of what you guys use to coordinate all of this stuff, where whether it was SMS messaging, you guys created a place on your website to book an appointment and things like that, i.e. that's what Josh is working on at the moment. But talk a little bit about, I guess, what you guys put in place, or if where you can, around some of that SMS engagement you guys did, and other pieces you guys had to add to it, because you guys kind of had to build this thing on the fly with kind of duct tape on the way.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that I want to talk to you about for sure, Mark, during our time. It's like that patient engagement. And a lot of it came from, I gave a presentation that kicked about like patient communication and patient engagement. And just like through my research over the years of, people always think that, the older folks can't use technology, but I mean, AARP comes out with a great resource every year where it talks about technology with the elderly. And I mean, it's almost like in the 80 and 90 percentile where you have elderly people that have smartphones and desktops and they're, on social media. And so I think the way we view it is definitely interesting. And I want to, I guess I don't want to get too far away from the question because I just get excited.
You're good.
I'll talk about
you're good.
Later,
we can hit that. We can get to that later.
Yeah. I think as far as the patient engagement side goes, I think the biggest thing was for it to be streamlined, for us to make sure that we have a good patient experience and it's not clunky. Like clunky is like our kind of like, swear word in the pharmacy. Like if we have something that's clunky, it's got to get fixed. If that's inventory, if it's workflow, if it's patient messaging, if it's even signing up for a COVID test. One patient told me about this urgent care place that was running appointments. I was on their website for 5 minutes and I still didn't know how to sign up for an appointment. Just what does it look like to the patients? And like, are we trying to tell our 68-year-old patient, go to our website and sign up for an appointment? Right. And then, a few minutes later, I see his name pop up. I mean, that's huge. And that's a super important thing. And so as far as messaging goes, I think the biggest, I don't know if we can say like companies, but Vow is our phone company. And like, they've been amazing. I mean, Pioneer integration aside, I mean, just the flexibility that you have with a VoIP or like a voice over internet phone system is incredible. And so one of the first things that I was really bogged down by, like, have you ever like, you know, like seen those people that are like standing in front of a roller coaster explaining the instructions, or like a Trader Joe's, and they're like, keep 6 feet distance, and blah, like that sounds like horrible to me, right? And so the first thing we did was recorded the instructions for how to do the test. And before you even check into the pharmacy, you know, you hear those instructions like, take the cotton swab, do this and that. And then I just saved all of my med techs probably like a minute, and like, you know, I saved their voices too from going out. Just trying to find a way to make it easier and replicatable, right? I don't want someone to say, oh, your med tech told me to stick it in my ear. Like, no, like I recorded the message, like, you know, I know what it says, and, you know, it was your, you know, you have to listen to it. And so I think the phone system was huge. Secure messaging was a game changer. Like, to be honest, like, I mean, Pioneer being able to do that, like, right? Like, how do you send people their results if it's not HIPAA secure? Like, how do you do all these different things? And so that were all things, just like we were talking about being prepared. Like, the fact that Pioneer's been doing this and preparing for so long helped us do that. Like, couldn't have done like all the curbside texting and things that people have talked about. Like, if y'all didn't do those updates, we would be in the Stone Ages. You know, we would not have the tools to fight in this, you know, this war. But I mean, you guys do the same thing.
Yeah, no, it was just like, that's how you get to 500 a day, right? That's how you get to 500 tests a day. You make it so easy and almost done for them to a point, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, and we didn't really talk about care planning, but that was one of the deals where, you know, like with CPSN and care planning, initially we built it so that it had a lot of features, but it wasn't easy to use, you know, and then you start to focus that in to find out how you can make it easier and easier, and then start automating it, you know, and that's the difference between doing 3 care plans a day or 3 COVID tests a day,
right,
to doing 2,000 a month, 500 a day, whatever. You know, like, you just can't do that without understanding how your tools work and having good processes.
Yeah, I'll say this: the amount of times that Josh or Jeff, both, have looked over somebody's shoulder and was like, I can't believe I made them do that.
Yeah.
You know, and then they immediately go back, especially, you know, Josh, give credit, goes back, is like, we got to fix this, you know?
Yeah. It's funny. Jeff's going to get some good quotes on this, but he told me, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, you know who the worst developer on the planet is? And I was like, oh man, this is going to be bad. And he goes, it was me last week. Right. 'Cause you're always looking back at the stuff that you did before, and you're like, why did I make that decision? You know, how do you make it better? And so it's always that drive of, what I did last week is trash. Now we have to make it better, right? And every week it keeps getting better and better. And that's just kind of part of the culture that I think a lot of independents have.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we need to have, like, when you don't have that, then you have the computer system that you update every 6 months, and you stop caring, and the needs of the people. Like, I mean, it's like for any business, I think it's important to look at what you've done, and that's not it, right? Like, hopefully you're smarter, or hopefully we're smarter, you know, 6 months from now than we are now. So an idea we had 6 months ago probably isn't the best idea, right? Or if it was a good idea, like, how do we make it better?
It's changed. Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah, exactly. It's changed. And maybe the game's changed, right? Like, maybe someone found something that made it easier. And like, I know for you guys, I think with software, it's probably similar, but I always tell people, like, I love hearing problems, but you better not just throw a problem on my lap. You better give me a solution. Like, I don't want to hear it, Rannon, like, you know, our workflow sucks. Oh, okay. Yeah, great.
Right. Cool. Yeah, no.
I'll get right on that, you know, but it's like, Rannon, it takes too long to find stuff in the print queue, or, hey, like, these are getting, you know, lost in the shuffle, or we're not doing these as fast. And I think if we do X, Y, Z, now we've got that. And so it's a testament to just our team and like you said, the culture. And I mean, our med techs are super smart. And like, I mean, some of the best ideas we've had for our COVID testing came from, you know, our part-time or you know, like our seasonal med techs that are just like, man, Rannon, like, a few people have called complaining about this or saying that this was tough. Is there any way we could maybe like XYZ or do this and that. And I was like, oh, man, that's a great idea. Yeah, I had no idea. And we can definitely do that. It's done, you know? And so stuff like that, just making these like little tweaks and kind of like almost like making a sculpture. You take the big chisel to get the huge like kind of figure done, and then you get the little fine tuning, and then you just kind of go there. And so I think it's super important.
Yeah.
And it's a really tragedy if you stop.
And to yours and Mark's credit, like you've built a culture where the med tech feels totally comfortable coming to Rannon going, this thing takes too long, you know, and that's something where we try to do too here is just like, I don't, Josh always says, I think this is a Josh quote, but he's like, I don't care if a good idea comes from the janitor. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. They're probably the people that see the dirtiest parts of the building. So they might have the best.
Well, you know, it's funny. I was, when I was working on my MBA, we were studying lean manufacturing. So when manufacturing went over to Japan after the war, their economy was decimated. So they had to come up with these ideas to be better and more efficient. And so they actually took ideas from a guy from Kodak to build out Six Sigma and lean manufacturing. And one of the first things they did was in an assembly line, typically the only person who could stop the line was the supervisor. And one of the first things that Toyota did was say, that's terrible. The guy who sees the broken thing go by him on the line is the one that needs to stop the line. Right. So they made it so that literally anybody on that manufacturing floor could stop a manufacturing line when they saw a problem. And I think that's really important that, you know, successful pharmacies and successful companies let the people who are doing the job that they're doing all day, every day, say, hey, this doesn't work. And if we did this differently, you get a better result. And we all know how that turned out, right? Toyota's known for making defect-free cars, right? It just
good.
Like they'll run forever, right? You can't say the same of Chrysler, right? And
no offense to anyone.
No offense to anybody at Chrysler.
Right.
If they ever listen.
Exactly. You're like, sorry.
Like my bad. Since we're gonna name names.
Notably, I drive neither a Chrysler nor a Toyota.
No. He's a car snob in general.
Josh, you just called out, boy. You know.
That's okay.
Right. But no, I think
we're a long way away from Chrysler taking notice of us.
That's true.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think I think you're right, and I think that kind of comes from the top, so to speak, and that's something that I've always been super appreciative with. Like, you know, Mark's been like a huge mentor to me, and like, all the quotes you guys have from Jeff, I've got the same number of quotes from Mark, and so one thing that we talk about a lot, and we talk about, how do we start this, or for you guys, like, how do you start a new service? Or I'm sure when you pitched, like, I mean, Josh, I was there. Actually, she and I were there at it was Louisiana, right? It was New Orleans at the introduction of care plans.
Right.
And, like, I was hyped, man. Like, I was so pumped up when you were talking about care plans. And, like, I looked around the room and, like, there's some people that just, like, didn't, like, they just couldn't wrap their head around it.
Yeah.
And so I wonder about, like, just being able to be in a position or have the encouragement to try something and not be afraid of how it's going to be received, because over time it'll be fine. And so Mark's been always super encouraging to me to say, like, all right, if we try something, worst case scenario, it fails, at least we know now we don't need that. And while everyone's wasting their time trying to figure out, I don't know, like, what's a failed idea? I mean, there's so many. Anyway, like
we have a lot of those ourselves.
I know. Yeah. I was like trying to, I don't know, to rocket into the sea. Right. Like, we don't need to do that because we've already tried it and it doesn't work, and we can move on. And so he would always ask me, like, if I made a mistake, especially as a student, that for a student or like a new pharmacist or even just like a new owner or manager, like, we're so afraid of misstepping and we're so afraid of doing the wrong thing, or what if I order too many flu shots, or what if I order these strep tests that expire, or whatever. But
what if you order an ultra low freezer, right?
Yeah. What if you order an ultra low freezer? No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just something that he would always ask me, like, did you do it maliciously? Did you do it on purpose? Did you make that mistake because you wanted to just, throw it down the drain? And I would always say, like, no, like, never. He's like, all right, so I don't have to blame you for that, but did you learn something? And I was like, yeah, I did. He's like, good. If those, answers to those questions are anything but that, then we have a problem, right? And so I was always appreciative of that. And like we said, like, we could have bought ultra low freezer, a different vaccine could come out, And then we just have the coolest, most expensive ice cream freezer of all time, right?
Yes, that ice cream will be rock hard.
I know.
I mean, the cool part is you guys are like 20 minutes away from an anthropology department at UT that does use ultra low freezers. So
that's true.
You could probably sell it to somebody that's freezing a lemur or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If we have to mark it down and get that off our chest or whatever, we can totally do that. And so a lot of it was just being okay. And like you said, to print an idea. And Josh, please, I didn't mean to say that like the care plans.
Oh, no. The first time I presented it, there were crickets.
No, it was, no, we've talked about this. I mean, a long time.
I widely regard that as like the single worst presentation I've ever given. Just because, when I went to go talk about it, like I'd been doing care planning for years and I'd been thinking about how it worked and what was going to look at it. And I could see the beginning and I could see the end. And I presented it to, 250 people who had not even heard about the beginning yet. So we're talking about a vision that we were in two different rooms for all intents and purposes. And so, seeing like that, and that was one of those formative moments of, you can have a vision, but if you can't make it simple enough to communicate it to other people, it's a fail. So, I took that back to the drawing board and said, hey, I have to figure out a way to bring independent pharmacists who haven't heard of this concept yet to the table. And, that was really the start of how we made care plans simpler, really start thinking about, all right, well, your average pharmacy is not going to go and build custom templates and custom triggers and all these other fancy things, but we could build that for them and they can use them if they're very easy. So it was absolutely, looking out, like if you're on stage and you ever watch a comedian just totally bomb, that was me for 2 hours.
Yeah, but I'll say this though. I mean, you came back and you learned so dang much. And here's a number I can throw out there. I think I'll get in trouble, but oh well, if it is. And we've sent, what's the number? What's the final? What do you think the final number is? I don't know.
We're at about a little over 1.1 million.
1.1 million care plans have been transmitted.
That is incredible.
And so, you're right. It went from like, no offense, of like, something that
it went from this nebulous topic that made me kind of look like a fool to now it's commonplace. Like there's 900 pharmacies that submit at least one care plan a month.
Yeah.
Right.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And then again, that's like, and that's I kind of look at that as like, if you're really going to go cool, I'm going to immunize 3,000 patients this year. Immunizations, especially flu and stuff like that, it's something you have to buy into because usually you have to buy that product before, right? You have to make a commitment to a number. And I used to be on the wholesale side. It's a little bit of where I get that information from. So it's like, if you're going to you got to do it. You got to commit to doing it. And so that's a little bit of, I think, what holds people back sometimes from going full in. Like, obviously it didn't hold Rannon and them back, but
I mean, to quote one of the best action movies ever starring Steven Seagal, fortune favors the bold.
Right. So credit to Rannon and that your crew that has bought in, doing what y'all are doing.
No, it's great. But Mark, while we're sharing stories, what was a formative moment for you? Josh, I'm sorry, Josh. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you learned a lot from it. I didn't mean to throw you in the.
You're like, I'm glad you learned a lot from the worst presentation ever.
We'll do a round.
Right. I probably
love it.
With RX Local has taught me so much about how smart some of these pharmacists are and that are willing to give us feedback on SMS or how we're doing it and maybe whatever triggers it or hey, this button makes the patient feel like it's done, right? And really they're supposed to click on it. It's just so many little nuances of us releasing something that maybe I had some hand in, but I typically am a vessel for them to go back to, has taught me so much about how patients think, how pharmacists feel like it should work, and we're always digesting that and making sure we're a vessel back to Josh and Jeff and the product guys to go, look, this isn't right, this isn't working correctly or whatever. So yes, that. Oh, I hear you, whoever, whether it's anonymous, whether it's someone who knows me. So those are I'm learning constantly from that.
Well, one of the things that was weird, and you guys actually showed us what we didn't expect as well off of some of the early SMS messaging. We thought we knew how people were going to use it. And so when we designed the product, we were like, okay, these are the 5 things that it has to do from day one, right? So that's your minimum viable product. So we go out and like a day later, we've got 50 new ideas in our idea portal about, hey, you guys should do this, this, or this, or if this button were here, 50 different ways that we never even dreamt that the product was going to be used. And, we get that feedback right away. And sometimes you're like, oh man.
Yeah, no, really. There's so many times.
I didn't think about
there's
that.
so many times where you're like, you think you thought of everything and you're like, oh, he's right. He's
right.
I always wondered about that to see if you guys were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, or if you guys are just seeing that being like, oh, bummer. Like
it's a little bit of both.
Like, how did we miss that?
It's really like I can't believe we didn't see it, and thank God someone else saw it.
Well, even a good example of that is when you guys were testing out the med reconciliation product that we made.
Right. Yeah.
And you guys were like, well, it'd be really cool if we could just do save and new off of adding a prescription. Like, you're right. It would be cool, wouldn't it?
It would be.
And so, to our, to my developers' credit, that was out like the next week.
Yeah.
But, you're thinking about, 6 months of planning goes into this, and you forget, oh yeah, maybe a pharmacist would like to enter 10 prescriptions on a patient's profile.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, like I always forget, like when I talk to my MedSync tech, we have patients that are like on upwards of 14, 15, I think one patient on 20 meds, and like I can't even take my allergy med and my Zyrtec or something. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, there's so many pills. It's crazy.
Right.
And it's just a good idea to, like I said, I love how the fact that Pioneer can almost capture, it's almost like you have your own QI team, and you're just like constantly like looking up new ways of doing things. And I want to real quick, because I love talking about scheduling and stuff. So Josh, tell me what's up in your world with scheduling. And then Mark, later on, I've got to talk to you about like patient outreach engagement, like surveys, forms through like ARCS Local, because I just love hearing about that stuff. I want to hear it from y'all.
Yeah, so luckily, all of that's on the roadmap. And I will never commit to a date again because I will get crucified for it. But we'll
edit it out.
Yeah,
we'll edit that one. Yeah,
we can leave that in there. I will not commit to a date because 4,000 people will email me and tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
One of the things that we started working on again, earlier this year was thinking about scheduling. The pandemic really put that in the forefront again of thinking about when you're in a pharmacy and you really want to move toward a community pharmacy as a clinical location. The thing that's, we've got interoperable data now, we've got clinical capabilities in Pioneer and labs and care planning and all this other stuff. But the one thing that you don't have is pharmacy can't continue to operate on an on-demand process. So, we're really focusing on, building in some appointment-based model features into Pioneer, and that'll start with being able to set an appointment, just like an Outlook calendar, kind of things like that. And then eventually the goal is to move toward, a place where you can set availability and patients could grab it, kind of like a Calendly type appointment-based setup. Right. So it's an iteration. It's going to take, I would have loved to have said this is going to be ready in March of this year. And, it changes your life and the life of anybody else doing COVID testing. But the cool part is, good or bad, I suppose, this pandemic taught us a couple of things. And one is that it's not going to be the last pandemic. We got fairly lucky in a way that this one was really scary, but not as bad as it could have been. It said, all right, cool, we have to change our model and we have to be prepared for the next piece. And the next piece, if it doesn't have scheduling, you can't be successwe
Yeah.
And I think it's it's kind of like that thought process of MedSync, right? It's like, are we going to be on our heels? Right. Are we going to be the ones that are reacting to and really it's a crazy business model, like relying on people to get business, right? Like I have to trust in our thousands of patients that they're going to dial in and put in their refill number, go on their app and all this stuff. And how can we do the same thing? Or like flu shots have always boggled my mind. It's like nowhere else, like you can't just swarm a doctor's office and be like, oh wait, yeah, like oh, I've been here for 15 minutes. Like, where's my flu shot? And it's it's just so out of control. But even like, I think we have a really good opportunity to create that model better than doctor's offices. Like, I mean, I think I tried scheduling a office visit or a virtual visit, and it was super hard, you know, and I had to talk to a lady for like 7 minutes while she was trying to spell my name right. And I was like, oh, not that, I'm not Brandon, I'm not Randy, like, no. And so just having that opportunity to just jump on and schedule a visit. And that's why I think we talked about the ease of use. I think it's huge. And yeah, I think you're right. We're going to need it in the future.
I went through the same thing. We went and got, so my wife's Marcia, everyone knows her. Everyone knows her more than they know me. I'm Marcia's husband to most people. You know, we went through that. We went and got tested because her grandmother's coming down and going to hang out with us. So we're like, hey, let's all just make sure we got tested or whatever. And so we did. But man, you're right. Oh my gosh. I had to call, I had to email, I had to take a picture of my driver's license and email it. It was weird. It was clunky. You're right. It's clunky. That's the word. And it was so, but we did it. You know, I fought through it. But you're so right. And I do think there's opportunity there, right? And kind of talking through like what a patient could do that what they would rather do. In a either on their phone or at their desktop and stuff like that, like getting a consent form for a flu shot before you walk in, right, or something like that. I think there's tons of opportunity that's just kind of out there still waiting.
And there's still some, you know, forward looking, you know, eventually we're going to get older and patients like us are going to want to do things differently, right? And so my friends know, don't leave me a voicemail. Right. If I don't answer the phone,
just remember, Rannon, like if
text
Josh
me,
doesn't,
right?
Yes.
Like you call me if I don't answer, text me and I'll call you back. You know,
that's why you haven't called me back.
Right.
Right. Rules of engagement with Josh.
Actually, in a funny story, like I forgot my voicemail pin to log in on my office phone. So I got to get somebody to help me, which is maybe not great to admit for a technology company.
Right. Try all nines.
I tried all the basics.
All right.
But, you know, there's a future model coming up where, you know, like our parents aren't in that world where they've got smartphones, they've been texting, they've been emailing. The expectation is a lot of their healthcare is going to be provided in that same kind of stream. You can't rely on, I want to talk to a human all the time. I don't want to. If I can do it online or through text message, I'm probably going to go that route. And so those are the kind of things we have to think about.
Kind of like, well, we're right by the college too, right? We're maybe like 5-6 minutes away from UT. And it's actually really refreshing because every year we fill scripts for a lot of the sororities and fraternities and dorms and stuff. And I mean, it blows my mind every time a new crop of students come in. Like, I mean, they sound terrified on the phone. They're like, hello? I need to refill a prescription. Like, what do you need? And I forget, like, if you're not on the phone, like we are, like, you know, 8 hours a day, like phone conversations are very weird. And like, you know, we do flu shot clinics over there. And I mean, it's just so crazy how much they're on their phone and how great they are at texting and responding and emailing. But then you get them in a face-to-face situation or a phone. I mean, this podcast would be their worst nightmare. It'd be like, oh my gosh, I have to like look at somebody.
Have to look engaged. Yeah, no doubt.
Right, exactly. But I think it's really interesting, and I think it's important to not, like, right now we're like baby boomers, like what's comfortable for them? What do they want? And more so, it needs to be, you know, what is more accessible for everyone? What can the 19-year-old college student do? And what can the 68-year-old grandma do? And I think people are selling the older people short, and they're not giving the young people enough credit. And so that's why, like with the ARCS Local app, I think, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm thinking like, immunization forms, going straight to priority like fill queue. I'm thinking, you know, you can log in and type in your blood pressure, your diabetes, all of that stuff. But what's important too is it can't be dashboard fatigue. It can't be like 5 different logins, you know, and that's what's going to be really interesting to see is like, you can do like a calendar thing, but if it's not easy to get to, you're still not going to use it, you know, or two-way texting that you have to go log into a third-party website app, like that's never going to work. You know, it's got to pop up. It's got to be the little dashboard thing. It's got to be in the patient's profile. It's got to be on your to-do list, which was the greatest invention of all time. Because I was like, how am I going to make sure people read these texts? But it's going to be so interesting. And I think integration will be huge.
Right. Yep. And that's our deal. If it's not in your workflow, you're not going to do it.
And thank you so much for being on. And again, you, Mark, that entire staff you have are just a huge inspiration to everybody that we get to talk to. And we're just really blessed you got to be on with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, blessed to be here and talk to y'all too. And yeah, it's been fun. Like I could chat with y'all forever. And yeah, I probably will be hitting you guys up about some stuff
that
later.
Sounds good.
And we'll be coming after you for the 5-year immunization plan soon. So.
Right.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Actually, probably Madison will be coming for you on that one.
You guys have to come visit in Austin at some point.
Remember, text Josh. Don't leave a voicemail.
Exactly. Or I could just spam his voicemail, and then it'll just say 50 voicemails forever because he won't be able to clear it out.
That's true. Right. Well, I'm also anal enough to where if the button pumps up, or like you get like a little red thing, I got to get rid of it. Yeah. So
you're a button clearer.
Yeah. He's got to clear the queues.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And my wife has like 30,000 unread emails. It drives me bonkers.
All right, Rannon. Well, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Right.
Good to talk to y'all.
I appreciate you.
Right. Take care.
All right, Merry Christmas.
And to everybody watching, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thank you for listening to this Catalyst podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and/or following us. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more amazing pharmacy people like you. Follow Pioneer X on your preferred social media platform for the latest up-to-date pharmacy news and content.